This is the Garden of English. I'm Tim Freitas, and today we are going to not mourn the death of using Greek on an English test. So stay tuned. Alright, as we start this video, I'm going to tell you right now that you're going to want to like and subscribe. Why? Because we've got tons of AP Lit and AP Lang and actually just regular English content available from the Garden of English. And you'll want to be able to check in on that as you find that you have more questions about more things. But let's actually today talk about three Greek terms: ethos, pathos, and logos. Now you might say ethos, pathos, and logos, and that's fine, okay? It's kind of like saying zebra and zebra. It doesn't actually matter. But what does matter is that we know how to use these terms or what these terms mean to us in our AP Lang minds or in our rhetoric studying minds. Okay. Now, the first thing that I want to point out is this. Is it important to know those terms? Yes. Okay. The pathetic appeal is the appealing to the audience's emotions. The ethical appeal would be the appeal to the character and credibility of the speaker, and the logical appeal would be to the appeal to logic, okay? The problem is that although it's important to conceptualize these terms, what we don't want to do is we don't want to actually use these terms in our writing. And the reason why is because they are not precise at all. In fact, they are umbrella terms. So these are terms that we want to know what they mean, but we don't want to write with them. And the reason why is because good writing is precision writing, and these words just are not precise at all. Let me give you an example. Let's pretend I was watching an ASPCA commercial. You know those commercials where it shows like, animals behind, that are scarred and whatnot, behind cages with the sad music in the background, right? If I were to say something about pathos and I were to write a sentence in my paper that says, oh, the ASPCA uses pathos in order to get the audience emotional, what you just said was the ASPCA uses emotional appeals to get the audience to be emotional. Truth be told, what you really just said is absolutely nothing. Congratulations. We don't want that, okay? We want to speak precisely. Now, we want to realize that what happens in that commercial does fit under the umbrella of the emotional appeal, but let's talk about what they're actually doing precisely and the precise emotion that's being used, because that's how we would want to talk as human beings anyway. What I want to say is that the ASPCA consistently presents pictures of abused animals to get individuals to be sympathetic, so viewers and individuals to be sympathetic and feel bad for those animals. And notice that we are still talking about pathos, but that umbrella term, I mean, think about how many emotions there are on the spectrum here. We've got positive emotions like joy, we've got negative emotions like anger, and we've got those kind of ambivalent emotions like boredom. And so when we just use the word pathos, we could talk about any of these here on that kind of spectrum, and we want to be precise. So the best way to talk about pathos, right, even if we understand the concept, is to actually say what emotions are being discussed and what the speaker is actually doing to bring out those emotions here. So the ASPCA consistently exhibits tragic images, or they consistently exhibit pictures of abused animals in order to get individuals to feel sad and sympathetic towards those animals. Boom. That's a much, much better sentence than the ASPCA uses pathos to pull on the heartstrings of the viewer. By the way, that reminds me, pull on the heartstrings. What the garbage does that even mean? That idiomatic phrasing is actually idiotic phrasing. So please stop. No more pull on the heartstrings. Okay, there we go. So now let's actually talk about the word ethos. We want to conceptualize that ethos is about building character. The thing is, though, is that we then have to answer the question, character and authority in relation to what? Okay? So we need to say, what is the speaker doing that builds the character and authority for what? Because we could build our character for anything. I mean, I guess I could, build my character to be a balloon artist. Now, I'm a terrible balloon artist, but my point here is that if I just say, Tim Freitas builds his character here, builds my character for what? What authority am I trying to hold on to? What character am I trying to exhibit? So Please know a little bit about my background is this. I've been teaching AP Lang and AP Lit for almost 13 years. I'm a College Board consultant. I work with teachers all around the country. I'm an AP language reader. I've been a table leader, and I've written, I've co-authored a textbook for AP Lang. It's right here, right? And so now what I just did was I detailed my work history for you all. That's what I'm concretely doing in order to showcase that I am a credible source of information for AP Lang content instruction. Notice I didn't just say to build my credibility. I really focused on what that credibility is. So if you ever want to say the word ethos, right? Oh, the speaker builds his ethos here. No, no, no. Tell me what character or authority is actually being built. If it makes the speaker seem more friendly, you want to say the speaker does this in order to make him seem more friendly. The speaker does this in order to make her seem as much more intelligent and informed when talking about nuclear physics. Something along those lines. Really try to pinpoint the character there. Okay? And now let's talk about logos, right? Logos is actually trying to establish any logical correlation. And we want to be very careful when we talk about this because a lot of times kids think, all right, if I see statistics, or facts, that the author is using logos. That's not necessarily true. What we would want to say is we'd want to say, okay, the writer presents this particular statistic in order to highlight the logical relationship between blank. Make sure that you clarify this. And you want to say, okay, if they're using some sort of statistic or whatnot, then sure enough, I want to say, okay, it clarifies this particular position logically. Now, on top of that, though, logos is not just using stats and whatnot. Anytime a logical situation is presented, even if it's illogical and it's a fallacy, that still fits under that umbrella of logos, okay? And that's something that we really want to look into. There was an article that Cesar Chavez wrote called He Showed Us the Way. I encourage you to look it up. It was actually used on a past AP Lang exam in 2015, I think, right? But at one point and it's a great article, by the way, and Cesar Chavez is an awesome, awesome human being. But there's one part in that article where there's a logical fallacy, but that still fits under the category of logos, right? He actually says at one point, as he's encouraging people not to be violent, he says, examine history. Who gets killed in the case of violent revolution? The poor and the workers. And then he says the ones that fight for the land are the ones that get almost nothing. Well, interestingly enough, if you look at the logic there, he makes it seem like he tells people that history proves him right. However, if I think of the American Revolution, the destitute, the poor and the workers are the ones that gave up their lives, and they won their freedom. So notice that still tries to create a logical correlation. So it fits under the umbrella of logos, but it's actually a fallacy. And he doesn't actually give any statistics. He just says examine history, and it's a facade of examples here to make that logical correlation. Now, because of that, when we think about how we don't want to die as the poor and the workers in the case of violent revolution, we then become scared. So therefore, it's not just a logical push that he's trying to bring in, but it's also a pathetic one as well. But in that pathetic appeal, it makes it seem like he cares about me. So therefore, I'm like, Chavez cares about me, so I'm going to trust him a little bit more. And now that builds his character as being someone who cares. And now we see how ethos, pathos, and logos, even though we try to keep them separate in our minds, they actually interweave and interwork. And this is why we don't want to use language like ethos, pathos, and logos, because we just keep putting things into boxes. And we don't want that. We want to see the layers and the complexity here, right? And so because of that, we want to make sure that we write about things precisely. So what I would do here if I were talking about that Chavez piece is I would say something along the lines of Chavez asks a pointed and yet fallacious question in order to move the readers to be fearful, right? But also trust that he's looking out for their best interests. That is how I would talk about that. I wouldn't say ethos. I wouldn't say pathos. I wouldn't say logos at all. Now, I hope this video has been somewhat helpful in clarifying why we don't want to use Greek on the English test. But if you have any other questions, leave them right in the comments down below. I am going to ask once again that you like and subscribe. That's the easiest way for you to support the Garden of English, but there are other ways. We sell some really cool merch. We've got posters, we've got t-shirts. You can find those links in the description down below. We also have a Facebook page that you can follow and like, and we are on Instagram, and I encourage you to follow us there. And if you have any questions, once again, drop them in the comments below. I look forward to seeing you in the near future. Have a great one.